Hi, it's Clarice and Beth Ann again, here for our second podcast. Thank you so much for all of you that have given such kind words and encouragement to continue on doing what we're doing here. Really pushing for effective, real change, but giving you all education, tools, resources, the things that we've found along the way that really help us keep pushing through every day. So, last episode, we had promised that we were going to dive deep into the union spending and where the money goes. And we're sorry to say that this episode is going to be a little different than that. That the union money and follow the money episode will be next. But Beth Ann and I's very dear friend, someone who has protected us along the way through the campaign, through back to school, was one of the 3 Philadelphia SWAT members that was shot. He has protected us. He's protected you. And we really want to dive deep into really what caused this shooter to do what he did and why TJ was in the line of fire. You know, a husband, a father to 3 children, and we love you so much, TJ, and we just want to put the word out, shine the light on really what is happening within the adolescents and in our youth. So if you don't know the subject that I'm talking about, we just wanted to give you a quick little clip of what had happened a few days ago at 6 a.m. in the morning. It, truly a tragic thing. So I want to pull this video up.
All right. Good morning. So just after 6 a.m., SWAT officers were at the location of the 800 block of North 10th Street, attempting to serve a warrant on an individual that was wanted for a homicide and a suspect in multiple armed robberies in Central Division. Upon approaching the location, attempting to knock and announce, they were fired upon by this suspect through the door and through the window. Officers were able to continue to breach the property, where they took on more gunfire from this individual, striking one officer in the leg, one officer in the hip, and the other officer in the upper chest after the bullet kind of ricocheted off of his vest. At that point, the suspect ran through the property, attempting to flee out of the rear of the property, at which point in time, SWAT officers that contained that property in the rear of the property began to engage that suspect. After the suspect began to fire at them, they returned fire, ultimately striking the suspect. Our officers were transported here, where, again, the hospital staff did a tremendous job working on them. And the suspect was transported to Temple Hospital, where he was pronounced at 7:32 a.m.
But Beth Ann, if you want to start off, I also have a few things to contribute, but I know that you've done some digging into this, it being a 19-year-old suspect, and now it is pronounced. And when he says pronounced, that means he is now passed away. And we have to always remember the victims. But I think it's really important to dig deep, and something that the media doesn't really dive into is, why is this 19-year-old child doing what they're doing? And let's rewind the clock 2 years ago, 17 years old, when Philadelphia schools would not open. Give me your thoughts.
So there's so much to say here, Clarice, and I think, many of our viewers know my background, that I worked in the human services field for 30 years, working with many young people from Philadelphia, many low income, many minority children, many males. And I can tell you that, one of the greatest predictors of going to prison as an adult is lack of a high school diploma or lack of a GED. And so when we see the crime that continues to escalate in Philadelphia, we are seeing many of these young people who these young African-American men who were left out of school for almost 2 years in Philadelphia. I mean, the situation in the Philadelphia public schools was not great before the pandemic. I mean, generally speaking, they have a graduation rate of about 80% citywide. So that's 20% of the kids who go to high school that don't even graduate. And that doesn't even include the large number of dropouts. We know that enrollment declined significantly in Philadelphia schools when the schools shut down, and those kids never went back. So it would not surprise me at all if this young person, this 19-year-old, who is now, his life is over, and regardless of the poor decisions that he may have made, he has family that are grieving for him. He has family that will never get him back. And I do believe that so much of this, the crime, is very much related to the lack of the Philadelphia school system to engage and keep these kids on track so that they get a diploma or a GED so that they can go on and do something successful with their life.
Yeah, BethAnn, I mean, spot on. Really, what is so frustrating to me, and I have tried numerous times to get this in front of the media or the media to report on this, but the majority of crime that is happening, Philadelphia or New York City, LA, you really look into the crime that's happening, the median age is 15, 16, 17, 18. And I know that a lot of people listening to this right now are thinking, the last crime story I saw was a 16-year-old, was an 18-year-old, was, this adolescent youth that is so incredibly fragile. And so for me, I look at this as, not only were schools shut down for 2 years and all of us fought so incredibly hard to get them open. Philadelphia was the longest closed in Pennsylvania, but we have friends in New York City where New York City wouldn't open their schools, and we see the crime rising there. But that has a lot to do with it. The schools not opening, and the moms calling us, and the dads calling us, BethAnn, and saying, "My children are going to the street for quick, easy money," is what they call it, and that's crime, that's drug dealing, that's prostitution. Instead of the schools giving them purpose to wake up every day, purpose being a trade or going to the military or college, they have really failed our children with giving them purpose. Instead of saying, I'm going to wake up and go, sell drugs on the street, saying, you know what, my life is too valuable and important because this is what I have to wake up to the next day. And there's one important note I want to make in this is parents do get accused of a lot. It's the parents' fault. It's the family's fault. It's the broken homes. And I'm not dismissing that does contribute into this issue. I do think it is very important to note schools have our children more waking hours than parents do.
Yep.
And their influence on our children is very, very real. Tell me what you think about that.
There's no question about that kids are with their teachers and their classmates for longer periods of time than they are with their parents. And, I want to backtrack a little bit and talk a little more specifically about some of the things that happened in Philadelphia. So not only did you have schools closed for almost 2 years, they were closed. Philadelphia School District was closed longer than any other school district in the state of Pennsylvania. So the children who are most at risk, most vulnerable, most in need were out of school for the longest periods of time. Combine that with the Pew Charitable Trust just put out a 2021 report on Philadelphia, and they shared that in West Philadelphia, Overbrook, and Southwest Philly, up to 6% of kids in school did not have the Chromebooks. 6% of kids didn't have the computer to even do online learning, okay? And listen, we know how bad online learning was. You and I sat with our kids at our kitchen tables, watching how awful it was, watching how hard we had to engage our kids to keep them on track and focused with online learning. But these kids didn't even have that opportunity. So these are all the reasons why enrollment declined, and the Pew Charitable Trust talks about that. The enrollment numbers declined. They lost about 5,000 kids that they have no idea, where those kids are at this point in time. And, what else are you going to do all day? Your parents, these kids' parents were probably at work or not available to support or assist them So they're going to go out and make other decisions, and they're not going to be very good decisions. And this is how they start getting involved in criminal activity, as you talked about. And it just escalates further and further. In addition to, they start hanging out with other kids who are doing the same things that they're doing, and they have no good role models. They don't have anybody redirecting their behavior, and they have no motivation at that point to get back into school. And we've really done these kids such a disservice. And the thing that I really want to focus on is this disproportionate minority impact, because it's Black and brown children who are most adversely affected by what's happening. I mean, the Hamilton Project did a study that said that African American males without a high school diploma or GED have a 70% chance of being in prison by the time they're 30, if they even live to be 30. Because when I worked with kids from Philadelphia, young men, African American boys from Philadelphia, the first thing that they would say to me is, Miss Beth, why does it matter if I go to school? Because I'm going to be dead by the time I'm 18. I cannot tell you how many children spoke those words to me. And it's gut-wrenching and it's horrifying. But this is real. This is their reality. And they don't feel like they have anything in their life to look forward to. And the schools are definitely not engaging and pulling them in and giving them a future, hopefulness. Like, that is what our children need, is hopefulness, not hopelessness. And I fear that Philadelphia just continues to instill hopelessness into our young people.
Yeah, when you and I had a conversation yesterday, it had reminded me of a conversation I had with a mom in Philadelphia. Her and I were actually in the New York Times together. And she's a hair braider in Philadelphia, makes a great living for herself. But she says, my hands are literally tied up braiding hair. I cannot help my children while they're doing virtual learning. And that was no exaggeration. But there was something that she said to me, and you had said it again to me, was she had said it was kindergarten to prison. Kindergarten is literally a prison pipeline.
Yeah.
And you had said it another way. If you can reiterate how you said that.
Yeah, I mean, so basically it's these kids that once you drop out of school, it is a pipeline to prison. And that's what we're doing. Every child that we fail in the public school system in Philadelphia is a pipeline directly to prison. And that's what's happening. I looked at Philadelphia school districts graduation rates. I talked about that 80%, but during the closures, alternative school graduation rates declined by 10 percentage points. So kids who are on the edge, who are not even in their regular public schools, but they're in an alternative school, those graduation rates over the pandemic decreased by 10%. And the one thing that Philadelphia School District did note was that during this time, the graduation rates for Asian and white students increased, and for Black, African American, and Hispanic students, they decreased. So not only did we lose kids, not only were graduation rates down, but for African American and Hispanic children, they were even worse if you can imagine that. So to me, this is a travesty of what is happening in Philadelphia. The crime is out of control, and our failure to address these issues with our children in our public schools is contributing, and it is a direct impact on the crime throughout the entire city. And something has to be done. The amount of money that we spend incarcerating people could be used in our public schools to make sure that these kids are getting a proper education.
Yeah, let's talk about that money. So
yes.
I'm not sure if everyone remembers the COVID relief money. The money that came in to Philadelphia alone was $1.5 billion. $1.5 billion with a B dollars. And that was to get HVAC and catch children up, that had that 2 years of missed education, especially the 6% that BethAnn mentioned that didn't even have a Chromebook to even do their work for 2 entire years. So $1.5 billion came into the Philadelphia school district. And that money, I have learned as of last week, has been moved to the slush fund. That is no longer in a COVID relief money package. So, that money could now be used for salaries and pensions instead of remediation of the schools with the lead pipes and the asbestos, not to mention equipping our children to gain back that 2 years of learning loss. So U.S. Senator Tim Scott, I admire him. He introduced a very challenging bill because he said nationwide 150 billion with a B of COVID relief money has not been spent across the United States. So we see school districts hoarding this money. Are they saving it to the next, contract negotiation for higher wages and better salaries? Why is this money not being spent? In Tim Scott's bill, he says we want to get this passed to give the parents the vouchers to say, do you need tutors? Do you need internet? Do you need a Chromebook that your school's not providing? Whatever that looks like, so that we can equip your children with the tools they need to be successful, all the while giving them purpose so that they're not waking up in the morning and saying, I have nothing to lose. So it doesn't matter that I unload 40 bullets on 3 SWAT men who have families at home, who have people that they've protected and touched throughout their daily basis, like you and I. This is very close to home. And I will say that our friend that was a victim of this very senseless and life-taking activity, this is not his first incident. A few years ago, his partner was killed in the line of fire, and he had to carry him out. Now, I want to challenge everyone listening. Who would want to be a police officer? And we say all the time, what's the root of this? What is the root of this issue? The root is the education. That is the root. Yes, we have radical DAs that need to go. Yes, we have all these crazy policies, but we must get our education system in check with this curriculum that is teaching our children as if they are owed something. And if they don't get it, they take lives to get it. They do whatever lengths they have to do to get what they need. Our curriculum on a daily basis, 8 hours a day, is telling children that they are beneath and that they have to fight and they have to take. And that is really not what America is founded on. America is founded on hard work, grit, and determination. And I really think that our curriculum, we've got to bring it back. So there's one more thing, BethAnn, and I'll have you react, that I did learn over the past week. At any given time, Philadelphia only has about 1,000 police officers on staff. 1,000. Philadelphia is a massive city. We talk about the Roxborough shooting that just happened at the football game. That's still considered Philadelphia. All the way down the center city. And men and women are not signing up for this occupation, frankly, because of what we just saw happen to our friend. But give me your thoughts on Tim Scott, his bill, people not wanting to be police officers, and the curriculum that our children are learning right now.
Well, I'm going to start with the issue of the money, because if you recall, once schools finally did open in Philadelphia, there were times when schools were dismissed early and closed again because it was so hot that the schools didn't have air conditioning and it was too uncomfortable to be in the classroom teaching. So I have no understanding why all of these schools were not outfitted with new HVAC systems, heating, air conditioning, ventilation, all of these things. This was the perfect opportunity for Philadelphia School District to be able to equip these schools to bring them into the current times. So I think that has been a huge downfall of Philadelphia School District. And I want to remind people who don't live in Philadelphia that part of the problem in Philadelphia is that there is not an elected school board in Philadelphia. It is the only school board in the entire state of Pennsylvania that is not elected by the parents and the taxpayers. It is appointed by the mayor. So there is no one to hold accountable because you can't vote these people out of office. And I really think that that's something that needs to change. We need legislation to change that so that parents have the opportunity to elect people who are going to put our children and their needs and their educational needs first. So first and foremost, that absolutely needs to be addressed and brought to the surface because these schools need a lot of work. Second of all, in terms of the police officer situation, I mean, can you imagine anybody, any child growing up today saying, I want to be a police officer? I mean, first of all, it's scary. I mean, these cities are scary places to live and to work. And, I certainly wouldn't be super excited if one of my sons said, yeah, mom, I want to be a police officer in Philadelphia. I would be very, very nervous about that. And then you put on top of it, this defund the police movement where, people who are hardworking and trying to do the right thing because there's a couple of bad actors, they get a bad name and they get stigmatized. So, I think we've got a lot of work to do to change some images so that we can encourage young people that want to go into law enforcement because it's a very, very honorable profession. I have 3 uncles in my family that were all police officers in the New York City area, and I was always proud of the work that they did. So I think that that is incredibly important that, we give our young people a path forward to be able to look at those kinds of options.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the defund the police movement, and it is very unfortunate that defund the police movement has infiltrated our schools.
Mhm.
There were, walkouts, and there were variety of different things, posters and flags and things hanging in our school districts, literally across America, with this movement. And I agree, there are a few bad actors. There's
Mhm.
a few bad actors in every single
Absolutely.
profession, every single one.
Yep.
And I think that just taking away their resources to keep our community safe is a real shame. I used to say when schools were open, and how hard we fought to get them open with moms and dads across the nation. I said, well, now we have an issue because moms and dads won't even allow their children to walk to school because the crime is so bad. And I just encourage everyone, we will get there. I know that this was more of a somber message, but I wanted to make sure that you and I had the opportunity to discuss, and be so grateful and thankful that we still have our dear friend who has protected us. But at the same time, reporting on something that the median age is within our youth, this crime that is happening is within our youth. We have to bring it back to the education level, and at least if the media is not going to report on it, we will. I don't want to say all media because there is definite people that have taken us seriously and will report on these issues, but it's very important to just see that our youth is really struggling, and curriculum changes must be made, purpose must be given, and we'll fight like hell to make sure it is. Do you have any last few words, BethAnn?
I think just the really important piece here is that, people who are watching our podcast, we have friends in Philadelphia, and this is about all of us pulling together. And I realize that for many people that live in the suburbs, people think, well, I don't live in Philly. It's not my problem. I chose not to live there. But Philadelphia is a huge city. It's the biggest city in Pennsylvania. And we all have an obligation to try to work harder to make things better for everybody in Philadelphia, and particularly our vulnerable children in the city of Philadelphia. We owe it to those kids to make sure that we address this issue and highlight what's happening, because that is the only way that we can possibly make change for these kids.
Yeah, I mean, our children are our future of our beautiful republic. Uh, they are the future surgeons and police officers and pilots and whatever they choose to be. And we need to make sure that that they're taken care of. So we're the moms in the middle. We will have another episode, I think, Wednesday. But again, thank you all for watching, listening. Comment, let us know what you want us to talk about. We always have so much to talk about. But we will be back again Wednesday, and we appreciate you all. Keep up the good fight.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.